Hey, I'm Megan Breppener, and if you haven't, if you're new to my channel and you haven't watched any of my videos so far, I'm kind of that. I basically blog about my life. I, I do a lot of debates, and I really like debunking myths and stuff, and I really like healthcare, so I do a lot of videos about healthcare and medical science, debunking popular myths, and basically just educating people. I really started this channel as a way to express myself because I felt so isolated because of COVID-19. And yes, I know my room is a mess and I know I'm wearing pajamas, but this isn't really a video where I'm trying to look good. It's a video where I'm about to drop some knowledge. So, people are probably going to hate me for bringing this up, but speaking of COVID, I read how they're doing clinical trials to find a vaccine, right? So, that got me thinking about vaccines. Like, you hear about those anti-vaxxers, and I just don't understand it. But I'm here to dispel one of the most bogus myths around about vaccines. Well, technically two. It's two birds with one stone. Anyways, I'm about to debunk that misconception that vaccines cause autism. So, the MMR virus vaccine is the one most people falsely believe, that it causes autism. It was invented in 1971, and it did contain trace amounts of mercury. There was a small-scale study by a doctor named, what's his name? Wakefield, where he did a study on 12 children and found the rate of autism was higher amongst them. But no other clinical trial has been able to replicate his results. And as you know, the way that clinical trials work, the way science works, is if it's right, it'll happen like every time. Like, you can prove it. Like, if his study was really credible, then when other doctors did clinical trials, they would have found the same thing, and they didn't. He was paid off by some company to say that vaccines cause autism. And he even resigned from the magazine that he wrote the article in, and he lost his license because it was unethical. Now, some people believe that it causes autism because of the trace amount of mercury that was in it as an antimicrobial to keep the vaccine from getting contaminated. Because, honestly, Who wants a vaccine that's been contaminated with bacteria and microbes and stuff? Does that sound fun? Doesn't sound fun to me. So that's what it was for. It was an antimicrobial. Now, I get where that myth comes from. But the thing you have to understand, and I'll link this down below, what I'm talking about here, is there are 3 types of mercury. Okay? There's organic mercury, which is dimethylmercury. There's methylmercury, and there's ethylmercury. Right? This is what's important here. So, dimethylmercury is readily absorbed by the body. And there was a big story about this, right? So there was a chemist who was working in a lab, and she spilled a couple drops of mercury on her hand, but she figured it was fine because she was wearing gloves, and so she just, kept going, kept experimenting. But over time, her mental status started to decline. She developed nerve damage, problems with speech. She'd sit there and stare at the wall forever. She'd have random bouts of screaming. She eventually died from mercury poisoning. And if you want to hear the whole story, there's going to be a link in the description to Chubby Emu's video. Anyways. So, what happened was dimethylmercury is processed by the liver. The liver turns it into methylmercury, which unfortunately is stored in the fat cells. And why is this so dangerous, you asked? Because the brain is 60% fat. And so they tried chelation, but because it was liposoluble, fat soluble, they cleared it out of the blood, but they couldn't clear it out of the fat cells. And so she died. But there's a point to this. So I discussed dimethylmercury, methylmercury. But those weren't the types that was in that vaccine. The kind they used was ethylmercury. Ethylmercury, unlike the other two, it's easily excreted from the body in the form of waste. Okay. That's what's important to note here. And even if it did have mercury in it, that doesn't mean it causes autism. I don't even know how they got that idea. It doesn't cause, it's not bad. It doesn't cause, this big, bad mercury poisoning. Even if it did, mercury poisoning and autism are two very different things. They're separate things, okay? One is not the other. Seriously. You can tell the difference. If you look at an fMRI of someone who has mercury poisoning and the fMRI of someone who has autism, they are completely different. And the reason some people might think this is because they give the vaccine early in life, which is around the same time children start showing symptoms of autism, whether or not they get the vaccine. It's a developmental thing, okay? Autism isn't caused by poison or environmental factors, or like I've even heard someone say that autism is caused by the mother not eating right when she's pregnant or something, which I don't think is true. Anyways, so most of autism is genetic. Vaccines have nothing to do with it. And not to mention, like I said, mercury poisoning and autism are totally different things with totally different symptoms. So, mercury does not cause autism, but it causes stuff like depression, anxiety, irritability, tremors, and as it gets worse, people can suffer from ataxia, which is uncoordinated walk. They lose their coordination. Kids who are exposed to it have visual spatial problems. It'll permanently damage your liver and your brain, kidneys. Kids who are exposed to mercury later on may develop a learning delay or disability, but it's not the same as autism. Mercury affects it's neurotoxic, so it affects your nerves. Like if someone has mercury poisoning, they'll have stuff like I said, ataxia, slurred speech, basically just neurological problems. Neurological problems that aren't the same as the ones caused by autism. Mercury causes brain damage. Autistic people are not brain damaged. Our brains are simply wired differently. And the very idea that it just sounds so weird to me. Like, to think that I am who I am just because of a vaccination shot? Yeah, I don't think so. And this information is really dangerous because so many people have gotten sick because their parents were against vaccinations, you know? Like, there was a statistic, I think I read it on the CDC, that a person dies every 20 seconds from a disease that was preventable by a vaccine. Just think about it. One person every 20 seconds dies because of something that could have been entirely preventable. Like, we're lucky. We live in a society where vaccines are accessible. In other countries, it's even worse. People die from stuff that is basically unheard of here. You want to know why? because of vaccines. Vaccines are why we don't get all these nasty stuff that we used to have. But people in other countries, especially poor countries, don't have the money to get vaccines. And so because of that, a lot of people die every day. People all over the world die from diseases that are preventable. And that's like that's my main reason for starting this channel, is I like to talk about medical topics and preventable diseases, because education is really important. And like I said, preventative treatment is the best treatment. So, and that brings me to my next point, which is a concept called herd immunity. So, sometimes people have a depressed immune system where, whether it be because of leukemia or cancer or AIDS or some kind of inherited blood disease or disorder of the bone marrow, they can't get vaccines. But here's the kicker: we can. That's why it's so important for everybody to be vaccinated. Because by vaccinating ourselves, we're not just protecting ourselves, we're protecting the people who can't get vaccines. That's why we get vaccines, to keep stuff from spreading around. And that's why since anti-vax people got more popular and received more mainstream media, there's been outbreaks of measles, mumps, chickenpox, stuff that's entirely preventable by a simple vaccine. And it's scary to think about, because what if the virus mutates? The virus or bacteria or whatever you're getting vaccinated for. If you don't get vaccinated and you catch it, there can be a genetic mutation or something. It can mutate. And then, guess what? We're screwed, because then the vaccines don't work anymore. You didn't think about that, did you? Bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens have been around since the dawn of time, and they evolved to survive. And so, if you let them spread, they're going to mutate, and they're going to try to stay alive, because that's what they do. We're their hosts. And so, say a kid gets chickenpox, and then that mutates. Well, then that kid can give it to someone else, whether they're vaccinated or not, because the virus can change enough to where the vaccine can no longer protect against it. And another example is flu shots. Doctors say to get them every year, you know? Well, me on the other hand, I can't get flu vaccines because I'm allergic to eggs. But I don't have to worry about it, because I know that everyone around me is vaccinated, which protects me, because they can't spread it if they can't get it. So, yeah. It's just sad that so many people die every day of preventable diseases. Think about how lucky we are. Vaccines are readily available, they're cheap. Most all medical insurance will cover vaccines. And like I said, even if you don't, they're cheap. Because, like I said, they're trying to prevent outbreaks. So yeah. I just wanted to share my opinion on that. Well, isn't really my opinion because it's actually facts and reasoning. I looked this stuff up before talking about it. And yeah. I hope you like my video, and like I said, if you like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and comment. What do you think about vaccines? Are you pro-vaccine? Are you anti-vaccine? What's your thoughts on the matter? Drop a comment down below. And don't forget to share this video with all your friends, because it will save a life. Peace out.